The alarm siren screamed through every corridor of the UES horizon. Amy Collins pressed herself against the wall as another explosion shook the entire ship. Red emergency lights flashed on and off, making everything look like a nightmare. She could hear the sound of plasma fire somewhere above her, and the screams of injured crew members echoed in the distance. Amy was a combat medic. She had been working on the horizon for 2 years now, and she had seen plenty of battles. But this one was different. This one was worse. The Kravix Empire had sent 3 warships against their single colony vessel, and they were losing badly. "All medical staff to Station 3, a voice crackled over her radio. "We have multiple casualties. Repeat, multiple casualties." Amy ran down the hallway, her medical bag bouncing against her hip. She was 28 years old, and before the war, she had dreamed of being a doctor on Earth. Now she spent her days patching up soldiers and trying to keep people alive while alien weapons tore through metal walls like paper. She reached the medical bay and pushed through the doors. The room was chaos. Nurses and doctors rushed between beds where wounded crew members lay bleeding. The smell of burned flesh filled the air. Amy had learned to ignore it, but it still made her stomach turn. "Amy, over here," Lisa Grant called out. Lisa was her best friend, another medic who had joined the service the same year. "I need help with this one. He's got a plasma burn through his chest." Amy hurried over and began working. Her hands moved automatically, applying burn gel and stabilizing the wound. The young soldier looked up at her with frightened eyes. He couldn't have been older than 20. "Am I going to die?" he whispered. "Not today," Amy told him, forcing a smile. "Not on my watch." Another explosion rocked the ship. This one was closer. Much closer. The lights went out completely for a moment before the backup power kicked in. Then Amy heard something that made her blood run cold, the sound of metal being torn apart, the sound of claws on steel. "They're boarding us!" someone shouted. "The Kravix are inside the ship!" The Kravix were terrifying. Amy had only seen pictures and videos, but that was enough. They stood 7 feet tall, covered in scales like armor. Their faces looked like snakes mixed with lizards, and they had claws that could cut through flesh like butter. Humanity had been fighting them for 3 years, and they were losing. The Kravix had better weapons, better ships, and better soldiers. "Everyone who can move, grab a weapon," Captain Raymond Burke's voice came over the speakers. "This is not a drill. We have hostiles in sections 4 through 7. All military personnel respond immediately." Amy kept working on her patient. She was a medic, not a soldier. Her job was to save lives, not take them. But she grabbed the small plasma pistol from her belt and laid it on the table next to her, just in case. The sounds of fighting grew louder. Plasma fire lit up the hallway outside the medical bay. She could hear human voices shouting and the strange hissing sounds that the Kravix made when they fought. Then she heard something worse, the screams of people dying. "Lisa, we need to seal the doors," Amy said. "Right now!" But before they could move, the main door exploded inward. 3 Kravix warriors rushed into the room. They were enormous, their scales gleaming under the emergency lights. Their eyes glowed yellow in the darkness. They carried weapons that hummed with deadly energy. The medical staff scattered. Some tried to fight. Others tried to run. Amy grabbed her pistol and fired twice at the nearest Kravix. Her shots bounced off its armor uselessly. The creature didn't even slow down. Then the human Marines arrived. Sergeant Kyle Rodriguez led a team of 6 soldiers into the room, their rifles blazing. The Kravix turned to face this new threat, and the medical bay became a war zone. Amy dove behind a medical bed, covering her head as plasma bolts flew overhead. One of the Kravix fell, then another. But the third one was fighting like a demon, its claws ripping through one Marine's armor like it was cloth. Rodriguez kept firing, his face set in grim determination. Amy heard a sound. A small sound. Something that didn't belong in a battle. It was a whimper. a frightened, childish whimper. She looked around frantically, trying to find the source. There, in the corner behind a pile of broken medical equipment, something small was hiding, something that definitely wasn't human. Amy crawled across the floor, keeping low to avoid the weapons fire. When she got closer, she saw what it was. A Kravix child. It was small, maybe 3 feet tall, with lighter-colored scales than the adults. Its yellow eyes were wide with terror, and it was shaking. The child looked at Amy and hissed softly, but it was a sound of fear, not aggression. It reminded Amy of a scared kitten. She could see that it was injured. Purple blood leaked from a cut on its arm. "Hey," Amy whispered softly. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." The child didn't understand her words, but maybe it understood her tone. It stopped hissing and just stared at her with those big, frightened eyes. Behind her, the battle was ending. She heard Rodriguez shouting orders. "Sweep the room! Make sure they're all dead! Check every corner!" Amy looked at the child. Then she looked back at the Marines. She knew what would happen. They would shoot first and ask questions later. This was war. The Kravix had killed thousands of humans. No one would blame Rodriguez for killing a Kravix child. In fact, Command would probably praise him for it. But Amy couldn't let that happen. She looked at this small, terrified creature and saw something that went beyond war and politics. She saw a child, a scared child who was alone and hurt and about to die. She made her choice in a heartbeat. "Stay down," she told the child, even though it couldn't understand. Then she threw herself over the small body, covering it completely with her own. She spread her arms wide, making herself as big as possible, shielding every part of the young Kravix. "Hold fire! Hold fire!" someone shouted. But the order came too late. 3 plasma bolts hit Amy in the back. The pain was unlike anything she had ever felt. It was like being burned alive from the inside out. She screamed, but held her position, refusing to move away from the child beneath her. "Cease fire! Cease fire!" Rodriguez was yelling now. "Collins! What are you doing?" Amy couldn't answer. The pain was too intense. Her legs felt like they were on fire. She could smell her own burned flesh. But she kept her body over the child, protecting it with everything she had. The world started to go gray around the edges. She could feel hands grabbing her, pulling her away. She tried to resist, tried to stay where she was, but her body wouldn't obey anymore. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was the small Kravix child's face, looking up at her with those wide yellow eyes. And somehow, despite everything, Amy smiled. Then she knew nothing at all. Amy woke up 3 days later. The first thing she felt was pain. It radiated from her back and legs like fire spreading through dry wood. She tried to move and gasped. Every muscle screamed in protest. "Easy, easy," a familiar voice said. Lisa Grant appeared beside her bed, pressing a hand gently on her shoulder. "Don't try to move yet. You're pretty badly hurt." Amy's mouth felt dry as sand. "Water," she croaked. Lisa held a cup to her lips, and Amy drank gratefully. As her mind cleared, memories came flooding back. The battle, the medical bay, the child. She had thrown herself over a Kravix child. "The child," Amy whispered. "Is it alive?" Lisa's face became carefully neutral. "Yes, the child is alive. You saved it." "Good," Amy said, then winced as another wave of pain hit her. "You're on Haven's Rest now," Lisa explained. "They moved you here 2 days ago. It's the big orbital station. Better medical facilities than the Horizon had." She paused. "Amy, do you know what you did? Do you understand what kind of trouble you're in?" Amy closed her eyes. She understood. She had protected an enemy during a war. While that enemy's soldiers had been killing her crewmates, the military would not be happy about that. "I couldn't let a child die," Amy said quietly. "I just couldn't." Lisa squeezed her hand. "I know. And for what it's worth, I think you did the right thing, but not everyone agrees with me. Over the next 2 weeks, Amy learned just how true that was. Some crew members visited her and called her a hero. Others sent messages calling her a traitor. The station's officers wouldn't tell her anything about what would happen next, which made everything worse. Dr. Peter Walsh came to check on her every day. He was a kind man in his 50s who specialized in burn treatment. The damage is severe, he told her honestly. 3 plasma burns to your back and 2 to your legs. We've done what we can, but there's nerve damage. You might not walk the same way again. Will I walk at all? Amy asked. Yes, Dr. Walsh said, but it will take time, and physical therapy, lots of it. Amy nodded. She had known it would be bad. Plasma burns were some of the worst injuries a person could survive. But she was alive, and so was that child. Dr. Walsh, she said carefully, the Kravix child. How is it? The doctor's face became troubled. Not good, actually. We're keeping it in a secure facility on level 9. But it won't eat, won't respond to anyone. We've tried everything. The child is just shutting down. Amy's heart clenched. Can I see it? Absolutely not, Dr. Walsh said firmly. You're not cleared for that. And honestly, after what you did, I'm not sure they'd allow it anyway. But Amy learned more from the nurses who came to change her bandages. They whispered gossip while they worked. The Kravix child was named Kess, or at least that was what the translators guessed. Kess was being studied by xenobiologists who were trying to understand Kravix biology. The child had been drawing pictures constantly, and all the pictures were of the same thing: a human with short dark hair covering a small figure with her body. Kess was drawing Amy. 3 weeks after the incident, Amy was finally able to stand with help. Her legs shook and the pain was intense, but she could walk a few steps. Dr. Walsh was pleased with her progress. The burns were healing, though they would leave terrible scars. That same day, Captain Burke came to visit her. He was a tall man with gray hair and a face that always looked tired. He had commanded the Horizon for 5 years, and Amy had always respected him. Lieutenant Collins, he said formally as he entered her room. Captain, Amy replied, trying to stand straighter despite the pain. At ease, Burke said, waving his hand. Sit down before you fall down. He pulled up a chair and sat across from her. For a long moment, he just looked at her. I've been thinking about what you did, he said finally. I've been thinking about it a lot. And I still can't decide if you're the bravest person I've ever met or the most foolish. Maybe both, sir, Amy said quietly. Burke almost smiled. Maybe so. He leaned forward. You're going to face a court-martial hearing tomorrow. There are officers who want you dishonorably discharged. Some want you in prison. They say you protected an enemy combatant during active combat. Amy's stomach dropped, but she kept her face calm. And what do you say, sir? I say that I saw a medic follow her oath to preserve life, Burke said. I say that I saw someone make an impossible choice in an impossible situation. But my opinion isn't the only one that matters. He stood up. The hearing is at 1000 hours tomorrow. Be ready. That night, Amy barely slept. She kept thinking about the hearing, about what they might do to her. But she also kept thinking about Kess, that small, frightened face looking up at her. The next morning, Lisa helped her get dressed in her uniform. Amy could walk now with only a slight limp, though it hurt. They made their way to the hearing room on level 5. The room was full of officers, all sitting behind a long table. They asked her questions for over an hour. Why did she do it? Didn't she understand they were at war? Didn't she care about her fellow humans who had died? Amy answered each question honestly. I saw a child in danger. My oath as a medic is to preserve life, all life. I understand we're at war, but that child wasn't fighting. It was just scared and alone. I couldn't let it die. That child is Kravix, one officer said angrily. The same species that has killed thousands of our people. That child wasn't the one who killed anyone, Amy replied. It was just a child. The hearing went on and on. Amy's legs hurt from standing, but she refused to sit down. She would face this with dignity. Finally, just as the senior officer was about to announce their decision, an alarm sounded, not a battle alarm, something else. An alert that made everyone in the room stop and look up. A lieutenant rushed into the room. Sirs, we have a situation. A Kravix ship has just entered the sector. Single vessel. They're broadcasting on all channels. They're saying they want to negotiate. Negotiate what? The senior officer demanded. The lieutenant looked uncomfortable. They're demanding to meet with the human who saved a child. They're demanding to speak with Lieutenant Amy Collins. The ship's commander says she's a supreme commander of the Kravix fleet. He paused. Sir, the commander's name is Thexara, and she's saying that the child Amy saved is her daughter. The room erupted in chaos. Officers were shouting, demanding answers, calling for security. Amy stood frozen, her mind racing. The child had a mother who was a supreme commander, a mother who had been looking for her, and now that mother wanted to meet her. Amy didn't know if she should be terrified or relieved. Probably both. The Kravix ship hung in space like a dark knife against the stars. Haven's rest station went into full alert. Every soldier grabbed their weapon. Every civilian was ordered to shelter areas. The entire station held its breath and waited. Amy sat in a guarded room with Captain Burke and several other officers. Through the window, she could see the Kravix vessel. It was smaller than their warships, but still deadly looking. She wondered what kind of person this Thexara was. A supreme commander. Someone who had probably killed hundreds of humans in battle. We should refuse the meeting, one officer said. His name was Colonel Davis, and he had a reputation for hating the Kravix with passion. It's obviously a trick. They want to kill Collins for what she did. If they wanted her dead, they could just blow up the station, Burke replied calmly. They have the firepower. No, they want something else. They want their child back, Amy said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. She's a mother. She lost her daughter. She just wants her child. That child is our prisoner, Davis snapped. Leverage. We're not just going to hand it over because some alien asks nicely. Amy felt anger flash through her. That child has a name, Kess, and she's not leverage. She's a scared little girl who needs her mother. It's not human, Davis said coldly. Don't forget that. Before Amy could respond, another alert sounded. The communications officer spoke urgently into her headset, then looked up with wide eyes. Sirs, the Kravix commander is requesting permission to dock. She wants to come aboard the station, alone. She says she will leave all weapons on her ship. The room exploded with arguments. Some officers wanted to refuse. Others thought it was a trap. Burke held up his hand for silence. We'll allow it, he said, but with heavy security. Carlos, I want your best people surrounding the docking bay. Snipers on every level. If she makes one wrong move, take her down. Carlos Martinez nodded. He was the station's security chief, a careful man who never took chances. Understood, sir. What about Collins? Collins stays here until we determine the situation is safe, Burke said. 2 hours later, Amy watched on a video screen as Thexara boarded the station. The Kravix commander was massive, even for her species. She stood nearly 8 feet tall with dark green scales that looked like armor. Her eyes were a deep gold color, and they moved constantly, taking in everything. She wore a uniform of some kind, but carried no visible weapons. She moved with the grace of a predator. Each step was precise and controlled. The human guard surrounding her looked tiny by comparison. Amy could see the fear on their faces, even through the screen. Thexara spoke in her own language, a series of hisses and clicks. A translator device on her chest converted the sounds to human speech. "I wish to see my daughter. Now." "You'll see her," Burke said carefully. He had gone down to meet her personally. "But first, we need to discuss terms." "There are no terms," Thexara said, and her voice was like ice. "My daughter was taken during combat. I want her returned. That is all." "Your people attacked our ship," Burke reminded her. "Your soldiers killed 30 of my crew." "And your people have killed thousands of mine," Thexara replied. "This is war. But my daughter is not a soldier. She is a child who should never have been on that ship. It was my error bringing her." For the first time, her voice wavered slightly. "An error I have regretted every moment since." Burke was quiet for a moment. "Why was a child on a military vessel?" "Her father died 3 months ago," Thexara said. "Killed by humans. I had no one to leave her with. I thought she would be safe on my flagship. I was wrong." Amy felt her heart ache. This powerful warrior, this enemy commander, was also just a mother who had lost her mate and nearly lost her child, too. "Let me see her," Thexara said again. "Please." Burke nodded slowly. "Follow me." They took her to level 9, where Kess was being kept. Amy watched on the screens as they opened the door to the child's room. Kess sat in the corner, surrounded by drawings. She looked thin and weak. Her scales had lost their shine. When the door opened, she didn't even look up. "Kess," Thexara said softly. The child's head snapped up. For a heartbeat, she just stared. Then she made a sound, a high-pitched cry, and launched herself across the room. Thexara dropped to her knees and caught her daughter, wrapping her arms around the small body. Amy couldn't understand the words they were saying to each other, but she didn't need to. She could see the love, the relief, the desperate need in how they held each other. She wiped at her eyes, not caring who saw her cry. But then something strange happened. Kess pulled back from her mother and started making urgent sounds. She ran to her drawings and grabbed one, bringing it back to show Thexara. It was a picture of Amy covering Kess with her body. Kess kept pointing at the picture and then at the door, as if asking where Amy was. Thexara studied the drawing for a long time. Then she stood up, still holding her daughter, and spoke to Burke. "I wish to meet the human who did this. The one who protected my daughter." "That might not be wise," Burke started to say. "I do not care about wisdom," Thexara interrupted. "That human bled for my child. I saw the medical reports your people carelessly left where I could read them. She nearly died protecting Kess. In my culture, this creates a debt that cannot be ignored. I must meet her." Burke looked at the camera, knowing Amy was watching. Then he touched his communication device. "Bring Collins here." Amy's heart pounded as guards escorted her to level 9. Her legs hurt from walking, but she forced herself to move normally. She would not show weakness in front of an enemy commander. When she reached the room, the guards opened the door and she stepped inside. Thexara was enormous up close. She towered over Amy by more than 2 feet, those golden eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made Amy want to step back. But she held her ground. For a long moment, neither spoke. They just studied each other, human and Kravix, medic and warrior, 2 people who should have been enemies. Then Thexara saw the way Amy moved, the careful way she stood to keep weight off her injured leg. She saw the scars visible on Amy's neck where they disappeared under her collar. Her eyes narrowed. "You were injured," Thexara said. "Protecting her." "Yes," Amy said simply. "Show me." Amy hesitated, then slowly turned around. She pulled up the back of her shirt enough to reveal the plasma burns. They were healing but still looked terrible, angry red scars that would never fully fade. She heard Thexara make a sound, something between a hiss and a growl. When Amy turned back around, The Kravix commander was staring at her with an expression Amy couldn't read. "You took weapons fire meant for my daughter," Thexara said slowly. "You covered her with your own body. Why?" "Because she was a child," Amy said, "and she was scared, and I couldn't let her die." "We are enemies," Thexara said. "She wasn't my enemy," Amy replied. "She was just a little girl who needed help." Thexara was quiet for a very long time. Then she did something that shocked everyone in the room. She placed her right hand over her heart and bowed her head deeply. "You bled for my blood," she said formally. "By the old laws of my people, I owe you a life debt. This debt cannot be repaid with money or favors. It binds my honor to yours until the debt is satisfied." "I don't want anything," Amy said quickly. "I just wanted Kess to be safe." "That is why the debt exists," Thexara said, raising her head to look at Amy again. "You asked for nothing. You gave everything. In my culture, this is the highest form of honor." She paused. "I cannot leave until you are healed. I cannot return home knowing the one who saved my daughter still suffers." "That's not necessary," Amy protested. "It is necessary," Thexara said firmly. "And it is my choice. We have medical technology that can help you, better than what your people have. I will use it." Captain Burke started to object, but Thexara silenced him with a look. "I am not asking permission. I am telling you what will happen. Unless you wish to break the peace flag and start a battle here and now, you will allow this." Burke looked at Amy. She could see the question in his eyes. Amy thought about it. Part of her was scared. This was a Kravix warrior, someone who had killed humans. But another part of her, the part that had thrown herself over a scared child, told her to trust. "Okay," Amy said. "I accept your help." Thexara's expression softened slightly. It might have been a smile, though on a Kravix face it was hard to tell. "Good. Then we begin tomorrow." The Kravix medical equipment looked nothing like human technology. It was all smooth curves and surfaces that seemed to glow with soft blue light. Amy lay on her stomach while Thexara worked on her back, using devices that hummed and made her skin tingle. "This will hurt," Thexara warned. "Our methods are effective but not gentle." She wasn't lying. Amy gripped the edges of the table and bit down on a cloth as pain shot through her back. But it was different from the burning agony of the plasma wounds. This pain felt like healing, like something being put right. "Your people's medicine is adequate," Thexara said as she worked. "But you lack the technology to repair nerve damage properly. We have been fighting wars for centuries longer than humans. We learned how to fix what war breaks." After an hour, Thexara stepped back. "Enough for today. Tomorrow we continue." Amy sat up slowly. Her back still hurt, but already it felt better than it had in weeks. She could move her shoulders without wincing. "Thank you," she said. Thexara made a dismissive gesture with her clawed hand. "The debt requires it, but also, I find I do not wish to see you in pain." Over the next week, Thexara came every day to continue the treatments. At first, they worked in silence, but gradually, they began to talk. Amy learned that Thexara had been a soldier her entire adult life. She had fought in dozens of battles and commanded thousands of troops. "I am good at war," Thexara said one day, "but I never wanted to be. When I was young, I wanted to be a teacher, to work with children." She looked over at Kess, who was playing quietly in the corner. Then the conflicts began. My people needed soldiers, so I became one. "Why did the war start?" Amy asked. "I mean really start, not the propaganda version." Thexara was quiet for a long moment. "Our homeworld is dying," she said finally. "The sun is expanding. In another generation, perhaps two, our planet will be uninhabitable. We needed new worlds. We found systems that appeared empty. We began to settle them. Then we discovered humans were also expanding into the same space. Amy felt a chill run through her. The first contact incident, when the Kravix destroyed the colony on New Boston. We were told you attacked without warning, without reason. And we were told that humans fired on our civilian transport ships first, Thexara said, that you refused all attempts at communication. They looked at each other with growing understanding and horror. Someone lied, Amy said slowly. To both sides. Yes, Thexara agreed. But who benefits from our war? Amy thought about that question for days. She started asking people, carefully, quietly. Lisa helped her access records and reports that were supposed to be classified. What they found made Amy sick to her stomach. Military contractors on both sides were making massive profits from the war. Weapons manufacturers, shipbuilders, politicians who ran on fear of the other species. There were people getting rich and powerful from all the death and suffering, and the more Amy and Lisa dug, the more evidence they found that the first contact incident had been staged. Ships from both sides that didn't match official records. Communications that were mysteriously jammed. Witnesses who had disappeared or changed their stories. This is bad, Lisa whispered one night as they reviewed the data. If this gets out, people will lose their minds. The entire war has been a lie. Then it needs to get out, Amy said firmly. She showed everything to Thexara. The Kravix commander studied the information for hours, her golden eyes narrowing with anger. I had suspicions, Thexara admitted, but I never had proof. We have similar people in our government. War profiteers, those who use fear to maintain control. She looked at Amy. If we reveal this together, both sides might listen. Or both sides might kill us to keep us quiet, Amy pointed out. That is possible, Thexara agreed. Are you willing to take that risk? Amy thought about all the soldiers she had treated, all the young people who had died believing they were protecting humanity from monsters. She thought about Kess, who had almost died because adults couldn't stop fighting long enough to talk to each other. Yes, Amy said. I'm willing. Word of Amy's actions had already been spreading through the human fleet. Young officers and enlisted personnel started visiting Haven's Rest, wanting to see the medic who had saved an enemy child. Some came out of curiosity. Others came because they were tired of fighting and wanted to believe peace was possible. Lieutenant Jake Murphy was one of them. He was a pilot who had flown combat missions for 2 years. He came to Amy's room one day, looking uncertain. I heard what you did, he said. Saving that Kravix kid. I thought you were crazy at first. But then I met Commander Thexara in the hallway yesterday. She nodded at me. Just a simple nod. And I realized I'd been shooting at people. Not monsters. Real people with families and lives. What will you do now? Amy asked. Jake shrugged. I don't know. Keep flying, I guess. But maybe I'll start asking more questions about who I'm shooting at and why. He wasn't the only one. More and more soldiers were starting to question the war. On the Kravix side, Thexara told Amy that similar things were happening. Young warriors who learned about Kess were asking their commanders why they were fighting humans who would protect Kravix children. Change is happening, Thexara said. Slowly, but it is happening. Kess had become attached to both women. She called Thexara mother in the Kravix language, but she had also started calling Amy the warm one, because human body temperature was higher than Kravix. The child would sit with Amy while Thexara worked, and sometimes she would curl up against Amy's side like a cat seeking warmth. She loves you, Thexara observed one day. I love her too, Amy admitted. Is that strange? No, Thexara said. Love does not see scales or skin. It only sees the heart beneath. But not everyone was happy about the growing friendship between Amy and Thexara. Colonel Davis made his displeasure known every chance he got. He filed complaints. He tried to get Amy court-martialed again. He demanded that Thexara be arrested and Kess be put in a more secure facility. Captain Burke blocked him at every turn, but Amy could see the strain it was causing. Burke was risking his own career to protect her and allow this fragile peace to develop. Then one night, Lisa burst into Amy's room looking terrified. "We have a problem," she said. "A big problem. I was reviewing security footage like you asked, trying to find more evidence about the war conspiracy. I found something else instead." She pulled up a video file on her tablet. "Look at this." The footage showed Colonel Davis meeting with someone in a dark corridor, someone wearing civilian clothes but carrying military ID. They were talking in low voices, but the audio enhancement caught some of their words. "The Collins woman and the Kravix commander are becoming a problem. They're getting too close to the truth. We need to eliminate them before they can spread their poison." "Both of them?" "Both of them. And the child, too, if necessary. Make it look like an accident. Or better yet, make it look like one side attacked the other. That will restart the war nicely." Amy felt ice run through her veins. "When was this recorded?" "2 days ago," Lisa said. "Amy, they're planning to kill you. They're planning to kill Thexara and Kess." Amy stood up, ignoring the lingering pain in her legs. "We need to tell Burke, and we need to tell Thexara right now." They found Burke in his office and showed him the footage. His face went pale, then red with anger. "Davis," he spat. "I knew he was a problem, but I didn't think he'd go this far." "It's not just him," Amy said. "There are others, on both sides, people who profit from the war. They know we're getting close to exposing them. They're going to try to stop us." "Then we need to act first," Burke said. He looked at Amy with respect. "You started this, Collins. You saved a child, and now you might save both our species. But we have to be smart about it. We have to be ready." "How long do we have?" Amy asked. Burke checked the date on the video. "Not long. Maybe days. Maybe hours." They contacted Thexara immediately. The Kravix commander listened to everything, her face growing darker with each word. "I suspected there were traitors among my own people as well," she said. "Those who want this war to continue. If they are working with your traitors, we are all in great danger." "Then we work together," Amy said. "We trust each other, and we fight back." Thexara showed her teeth in what Amy had learned was a Kravix smile. "Yes, we fight back, together." The attack came at midnight. Amy was sleeping in her quarters when the alarm jolted her awake. But this wasn't the normal station alarm. This was the sound of weapons fire, close and getting closer. She rolled out of bed and grabbed the plasma pistol from her nightstand. Her door exploded inward and she dove behind her desk as shots tore through the room. She fired back blindly, not even sure what she was shooting at. "Amy, stay down!" That was Lisa's voice from the hallway. More weapons fire, the sound of someone screaming. Amy crawled toward the door, keeping low. She could see figures in black combat gear moving through the corridor. They were shooting at everyone, human and Kravix guards alike. These weren't Kravix soldiers or human marines. These were assassins, professional killers sent to eliminate anyone who threatened the war. She heard a roar that made her blood freeze. Thexara. The Kravix commander appeared at the end of the hallway, moving with deadly speed. She had no weapons, but she didn't need them. Her claws ripped through the first assassin's armor like paper. The second one got a shot off that hit her shoulder, but she barely slowed down. "Kess!" Thexara shouted. "Where is my daughter?" "Level 9!" Amy yelled back. "They'll go for her next!" Amy ran, her legs burning with pain but carrying her forward anyway. Behind her, she could hear Thexara fighting. More guards joined them as they raced through the station. Sergeant Kyle Rodriguez appeared with a squad of Marines. "Collins, what's happening?" he demanded. "Assassination squad. They're after me, Thexara and Kess. We need to get to level 9 now." Rodriguez didn't hesitate. "Move out! Double time!" They reached level 9 to find more assassins already there. They were trying to break into the room where Kess was hiding. Inside, Amy could hear the child's terrified cries. "Open fire!" Rodriguez ordered. The hallway became a war zone. Plasma bolts flew in both directions. Amy dropped to one knee and fired at an assassin who was placing an explosive charge on Kess's door. Her shot hit him in the leg, and he fell. The charge rolled away, unexploded. Thexara crashed through the melee like a storm. She was bleeding from multiple wounds, but nothing could stop a mother protecting her child. She reached the door first and tore it open with her bare hands, the metal shrieking in protest. Kess ran into her mother's arms, sobbing. Thexara held her close while still watching for threats, her body positioned to shield her daughter from any attack. The fighting lasted 10 more minutes. When it was over, 5 assassins were dead and 3 were captured alive. 4 human guards had died defending them, and 2 Kravik soldiers that Thexara had brought with her were wounded, but alive. Captain Burke arrived with more security forces. He looked at the carnage, and his face was grim. "This was coordinated, professional. Someone paid a lot of money for this." "We need to move now," Amy said, breathing hard, "before they try again. We need to tell everyone the truth." "They'll call it a lie," Burke said. "Propaganda." "Not if we show them proof," Amy replied. She looked at Thexara. "Not if we speak together, human and Kraviks, showing that we found the same evidence, showing that we're being attacked by our own sides for wanting peace." Thexara nodded slowly. "The communications array. We broadcast to both fleets at once. Show them everything." "That's an act of treason," Burke warned. "Both of your governments will call for your execution." "Then we're already dead anyway," Amy said. "At least this way, we die for something that matters." Burke looked at them for a long moment. Then he smiled grimly. "I must be getting old. That actually makes sense to me." He turned to Rodriguez. "Sergeant, secure the communications center. We're about to start a revolution." An hour later, Amy and Thexara stood in front of cameras while technicians worked frantically to set up the broadcast. Lisa had helped gather all their evidence into a single file: video footage, financial records, communications between conspirators. Everything they had found. "Ready," the technician said. "You're broadcasting to every human ship in the sector and every Kravik's vessel. Both governments will receive this too." Amy looked at Thexara. The Kravik's commander had Kess in her arms. The child looked scared, but she reached out and touched Amy's hand. "For her," Thexara said quietly. "For all the children, human and Kravik's." "For all of them," Amy agreed. The camera light turned red. They were live. Amy spoke first. "My name is Lieutenant Amy Collins. 3 weeks ago, I protected a Kravik's child during a battle. I was told this made me a traitor, but I couldn't let a child die no matter what species she belonged to." She gestured to Thexara and Kess. "This is Supreme Commander Thexara and her daughter Kess. They are the enemy. Except they're not. They're a mother and child, just like humans, and our governments have been lying to all of us." Thexara spoke next, her words translated instantly. "My people have been told that humans are monsters who want to exterminate us. But this human risked her life to save my daughter. She bled for my child. She nearly died protecting someone she had every reason to hate. This is not the action of a monster. This is the action of someone with honor." Together they presented the evidence. They showed the financial records proving war profiteering on both sides. They showed the communications proving the first contact incident had been manipulated. They showed footage of the assassination attempt that had just happened, proving that powerful people on both sides wanted them silenced. "We are not each other's enemies," Amy said, looking directly into the camera. Our true enemies are those who profit from our deaths, those who use fear to control us, those who would rather see millions die than lose their power and money. We do not ask you to simply believe us, Thexara added. We ask you to look at the evidence, to question what you have been told, to ask yourselves if this war truly serves you, or if it serves others at your expense. Amy held up a tablet showing the list of names: politicians, military contractors, corporate executives, people on both sides who had grown rich and powerful from the war. These are the people who want us dead, she said. These are the people who attacked us tonight. Not because we're traitors, but because we found the truth. And the truth is that this war was built on lies, from the very beginning. Kes made a soft sound, and both women looked down at her. The child was staring at the camera with wide eyes. On impulse, Amy picked her up. Holding her carefully, Thexara stood beside them, one clawed hand resting gently on her daughter's back. The image went out across space to thousands of ships and billions of people, human and Kravix, a human medic holding a Kravix child, with the child's mother standing beside them in trust. It was a picture that said more than any words could. We're asking for peace, Amy said softly. Not because we're weak, not because we're naive, but because we're tired of dying for lies, because children like Kes deserve to grow up without war, because there has to be a better way. Join us, Thexara said. Human and Kravix alike. Demand the truth from your leaders. Demand accountability. Demand peace. Not tomorrow, not next month. Right now. They ended the broadcast. For a moment, there was silence. Then the communication channels exploded with activity. Messages poured in from every direction. Some were angry. Some were supportive, but all of them were talking about what they had seen. Within hours, riots broke out on military stations on both sides. Soldiers refused orders. Civilians marched in the streets demanding answers. Junior officers started arresting senior officers named in the evidence. The conspiracy tried to suppress it, but it was too late. The truth was spreading too fast. 3 days later, moderate leaders from both governments agreed to emergency peace talks. They asked Amy and Thexara to testify. The two women stood before councils of both species and told their story again, this time with the whole galaxy watching. The peace treaty took 2 months to negotiate. It wasn't perfect. There was still anger, still mistrust, but it was a start. Kravix refugees were given rights to settle in border systems. Joint colonies were established. War criminals on both sides were prosecuted. The people who had profiteered from the war lost everything. A year later, Amy stood in the new embassy building on the border station called Unity. It was built half by humans and half by Kravix, a symbol of their new alliance. She worked there as a liaison officer, helping the two species learn to understand each other. She had learned the Kravix language and no longer needed translator devices. The scars on her back had faded, but remained visible. She wore them with pride. Thexara led the Kravix peace delegation. She and Amy met regularly, and over time their professional relationship had become genuine friendship. Kes had grown tall and strong. She attended the new mixed school where human and Kravix children learned together. One day, Kes asked Amy, "Do you regret what you did? Taking the plasma fire for me?" Amy thought about it. She thought about the pain, the long recovery, the danger they had all faced. Then she thought about the thousands of lives saved by the peace, the children growing up without war, the future they had helped create. "No," Amy said honestly. "I don't regret it at all. These scars remind me that protecting the vulnerable is always worth the cost." Kes smiled and hugged her tightly. "You're my hero," she said in perfect English. Amy hugged her back, blinking away tears. She hadn't set out to end a war or save two species. She had just tried to protect one scared child, But sometimes, the smallest acts of compassion create the biggest changes. Sometimes one person choosing mercy over hatred can shift the course of history. She looked out the window at the station where humans and Kravix walked side by side, no longer enemies but partners building something new together. It had all started with a simple choice: to shield the vulnerable, to protect a child, to choose love over fear, and that choice had changed everything. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. Sonnet 4.5.